So in this segment, we're going to do something slightly ironic for me, anyways, and talk about the importance of hope in politics. And I've seen, the people who kind of supported the Labour Party the most, really, during the run up to the election and during the election. Who called people Tory enablers and other accusations like that. Who said they had plans, in order to push for progressive policies, push Labour to the left on certain issues. I've already given up. And it's kind of crazy to me, like how that's even happened. Like the people who attacked people like me and others for pointing out the fact that Labour actually have no idea what they're doing, and then being told, nah, you don't get it, and then being called stupid and whatever, or Tory enablers, like I said. And then it turns out you actually had no idea what was going on, and things are far worse than you could ever anticipated. And now you're kind of, becoming apathetic when we told you this is what would happen, because they were literally telling you what they would do.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't really feel.
I'll sped it up ever so slightly.
Like optimistic. I've been in a kind of very perturbed state for a number of months now, because the new, especially pissed off with Labour for a bunch of reasons, but particularly because they're not implementing disinformation and regulation, disinformation legislation and regulating social media companies. But we've missed.
I don't know how you would, as a company, enforce things like misinformation and force companies to correct records. I get you can do that with in newspapers and things like that, because they're directly publishing the information, but putting that on the hands of the social media companies, that might be a bit tricky. So I'm not 100% sure how you would do that. Twitter does have things like community notes, which are great, but I'd love to hear someone in the comments actually discuss that.
Vote on that a long time ago, really. They had a chance, as Carol Cadwallader said, years ago, to take a stand with these guys, and they failed to. And now it's kind of like all bets are off, So,
it's galling to see the opportunities just flash by, and it's like we could do something about this, and yet the people in power are just. I don't think they're hitting their marks. Wolf is saying in the chat that Keir Starmer's been a massive disappointment. In fact, he's one of the most hateful and unpopular prime ministers ever. What compared with?
You need to have expectations to be disappointed, but then again, when I saw that budget, I was incredibly disappointed. So my expectations were low, but holy hell, did you exceed them?
Boris Johnson compared with Liz Truss, compared with Rishi Sunak. Think about he's coming off the back of the. It's all relative, isn't it?
I don't get hateful is very. I don't understand how people can hate him because he's just mild. If anything, he's deeply uninspiring. Sorry,
yeah.
not inspiring.
Yeah, you can be hated for being mild. Yeah, sure, because that's the whole point. You came in talking about hope and change and all of this stuff, and you've not delivered on it. This idea that just because he's a bit boring, people, you shouldn't really hate him is no. I'd argue Rishi Sunak was pretty boring, and yet people hated him as well. So I don't buy that, honestly.
Wow, that's an inspiring man.
I love it when he said that thing. Remember that speech he made?
Jesus.
There's nothing that I can remember him saying that I thought, oh yeah, God, that was a good line. You really took him to task there. Oh, you made me want to rise up.
You guys were glazing him when it came to PMQs when he did the most average job ever.
You want to play guitar? That's what you made me do. Interpol once sang. One Angry Pagan's just dropped £2 in the super chat, so I better say thank yous indeed. And just a big shout out to Super Tiny 808 who said, "No, this is a new hat, by the way. This is a new Christmas hat, a little savings account. I'm going to send it in a plastic bag, exactly the same way. They could have just done so much more. I feel like they could have been bolder, and I felt exactly the same way years and years ago, 27 years ago when they won in 1997. I felt exactly the same way. They could have just done so much more."
And this is what I mean when you don't get things down concretely in the manifesto. This is what's going to happen. All you did was hope and pray that Labour were going to do better in office, that they were going to be more left in office. That's all you guys had, because you were trying to convince people to vote for Labour when people weren't sure of them. There's a reason why Starmer's opinion rating, even before the election, was in the bin. People don't like him. They don't trust him.
They did some brilliant stuff, they brought in the minimum wage. Eventually, they got rid of Clause 28. Section 28, sorry, the Local Education Act, which meant you can't talk about being gay. They did some good stuff. They also brought in tuition fees and invaded Iraq. So, got to take them off with the smooth.
Yeah, that's great. The Tory party, they did legalise gay marriage. They also did massive amounts of austerity. So, got to take the rough with the smooth, bro.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, I'm caught in between two worlds here. I mean, I am reaching the point where I'm going to start laying into them a bit because a bunch of things that they've done that I fundamentally disagree with. Like for one, needlessly pursuing the Tory culture war bullshit of punishing trans people, which is a disgrace.
Yeah.
That is something that I 100% cannot get behind. But
They literally did that before the election. Did you call them out? Did you call them out before that? Did you have anything to say about those bad policies beforehand, or did you vote them in thinking that things would be different somehow, despite the politicians being very clear that they are anti-trans, despite the fact that Rosie Duffield was very much within the party, despite pushing anti-trans views, along with other kind of other senior people. So did you think these views would magically disappear overnight? Like they were just saying these things to win, and then once they won, they would stop doing it?
There's also the aspect of, like, on the other hand, they're beginning to implement or start to build on their manifesto pledges, but
they ruled out the one on elderly care, so don't know about that one, G.
It's really complicated. It's not cut and dry.
Yeah.
The things that they're bringing in are good things, like taxing the rich, good.
Taxing the rich. I mean, they did inheritance tax. They changed the rules around inheritance tax, which is good. The non-dom stuff, which Ed Miliband pushed back in 2015, which I think wouldn't actually generate that much money. So mid again. The stuff on the VAT on private schools, that's good. That's actually good. I'd put that in a good category. Not changing capital gains to be equal with income tax, bad, because they didn't do that. Not raising the top rate of income tax, bad, because they didn't do that. So again, very mid at best.
States good. VAT on private schools good. Nationalising the railways, fundamentally good policies.
That one's good. So you got three, kind of. And again, if they're not going to nationalise the rolling stock, then it doesn't really mean much, because the companies that own the actual trains themselves will continue to make money off the public.
But then on the other hand, there's stuff that I don't agree with, and it's not been long. So I don't feel like I've had long enough to judge them on their record to see if they're starting to achieve them, because it's been 5 months.
Yeah.
And then
so why don't you just talk about the things that you think are good and some of the things that you think are bad, and just go from there? That's literally what I've been doing.
On the other hand, you've the relentless rise of Farage cashing in on everything he's destroyed, because let's face it, he was basically he was the one behind Tory policy for the last 8 years. Essentially, they were trying to appease Farage the whole time, etc. So Farage has essentially kind of, to get an idea of what a Farage government would be like, you've just got to look at what the Tories have done for the last 8 years. And it'd
be a lot worse. It'd be a lot worse than that. But, when it comes to this stuff, like, you're in a situation where you've got a former Labour advisor pushing the Farage angle of send them back, people in the small boats and things like that. And yes, they are a former advisor, but this is what Farage does to politics. He turns it very far right, and he tries to justify his positions. And it pushes the Overton window to the right. That's why we're seeing Labour talking about, net immigration's too high and all of this other nonsense.
What Farage government would be like, people filling their pockets, culture wars, all that bullshit.
Yeah.
So you've got them rising. So you've got a Labour government that's only just begun. They're doing some shady shit. They're not particularly inspiring. They're getting it neck because they're pissing off all the people that are ultra rich, who run the newspaper companies, who want to retain
and their children go to the posh schools.
Private schools. So anything, and like they were even like building houses the other day. That it's like, we need houses, and they're making poorer people again.
I mean, yeah, that's true. They are annoying the rich people. They're also annoying boomers. The generation that retired. They're also annoying the kids of those boomers who are now concerned about their parents. They're annoying healthcare officials with all of the nonsense that they are pushing. They're annoying everyone because they haven't done much to really actually improve people's lives. They've annoyed all the CBI, all the business owners who they schmoozed up to for the last year and took their donations and basically shivved them by increasing national insurance on business contributions. So this idea that they're annoyed the rich, that's why they're getting it in the neck, complete nonsense. It's pure cope.
Think that building houses is bad, Johns. Even the last lot didn't do a good enough job of it. So you've got all these conflicting things. I'm just sitting here thinking, right, okay, yeah.
Oh yeah, annoying trans people and people that are concerned with trans issues. When they attacked Bengali people, that was a really sour point as well, a very low point. But it's just they're annoying. They're getting it in the ear because they annoyed the rich.
Yeah, they're not great, but they're not as bad as them lot.
But they push this idea of change. Things will be better, and yet I'm not seeing it. G, that's the problem.
And if you kind of like knock Labour heavily, you're going to help them lot. So it's a really tough.
Yeah, but I mean, look,
if you're going to knock reform, then if you're going to knock the Tories, then you're helping reform. Is a stupid argument. Like what you got to do is you've got 4 years, around a few years to the election, is to push Labour. That was the whole thing you were pushing prior to the election. The both of them were saying they're going to push Labour to the left, and now suddenly it's I give up. It's too difficult. I don't want to bash them because I'll be helping the Tories. What? Like, do you know what helps the Tories? The Labour Party not doing a good job. That's what helps the Conservative Party.
We've got a long time before the next election. It's a very long time until the next election.
Wow, Graham made a good point. Wow.
And Trump will be over, but hopefully, by the next election, because his entire term is going to be spent with the Tories and refuck out of power in this country. But yeah, I share your concerns, Tan. I think they could do more. I'm just making a point of not really defending them if they do something daft. I'm not going to say, but there's a good reason for it.
You were literally doing that before the election. And now it's suddenly, I'm not going to defend their stupidness, defending the Ming Vase nonsense, the 4D chess nonsense. And now suddenly it's, I'm not going to do it. Why? It's because they're in power now. And all the things you thought you wanted them to do, they're not going to do it. So I'm just going to switch off. I'm not going to discuss that. This is childlike.
Oh, fuck it. If they've done something
I don't know the reason for it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what they're fucking playing at with this, refusal to stop foreign donations.
Yeah.
Because they've taken money from dodgy sources. They took money from a company that's based in the Cayman Islands. That's why.
There's no logical reason for it. Like other people say, it's like the lambs voting for the slaughterhouse. It's insane. Like, what possible defence is there? I'm no longer a Labour member.
Labour have literally lost so much money from small donations in terms of memberships. There are so many people who got rid of their memberships. Labour wasted a ton of money on legal fees, attacking people that were there during the Corbyn years. That's why they're not going to close this loophole, because they're desperate for money. That's why. The party's not, I don't think it's in a good financial position.
Yeah.
Not for any particular dramatic cutting up my card thing. It just lapsed and I just didn't bother renewing it because I just don't see the point in power, I don't think my fibre is going to help them in all honesty. And so I'm not a member of Labour. I don't have any tribal loyalty to Labour.
Well, that's what
you did before the election when it mattered, though, when you were pushing them aggressively.
Samusu's saying in the chat, what I like about Labour supporters, though, we don't cheer them to the rafters regardless of what they're up to.
You're just going to ignore the parts where they do badly. You're not going to cheer them. You're just not going to discuss the areas where they're failing.
Tory supporters who thought they were cheering a fucking football team. That's so true. It's like, that footballification. Easy for you. It's like, politics, which, it is.
James O'Brien's literally still doing that.
The refuck supporters, you got your Farage out he did exactly what Trump did this year. Trump did, Farage, and unlike the American ones who are going to, including Brick.
That's pretty much it for the Labour conversation. I just want to discuss it because you can kind of hear the apathy a little bit. Him saying, if they do anything bad, I'm just, I'm not going to defend it. Really, I think he's saying he's just not going to discuss it. He talks about the Ming Vase stuff, all of this strategy. These two push the idea that they're going to push the Labour Party to the left, and now you've got a person who's not even a member anymore. So how are you going to push the Labour Party to the left when you're not even there? You won't be there at a conference to do anything unless you go there as kind of with media credentials, which I don't even know how you're meant to even get those if you don't work within the traditional media organisations. So do I feel a bit bad for them? No, because this is what I mean. Like, all they did was run on hope. This idea of competence will see us through. You've got Ian Dunt making the same argument. He's also one of the pro-Labour goons, talking about we must pray that competence wins. The alternative is too dreadful to contemplate. And it's like, you literally are going to sit back and hope for the best, which is, in my opinion, it's just embarrassing. Like, what do we learn from Russell Adler?
We don't just sit back and hope for the best. We'll make the best happen.
So it's, the case of, especially ironic coming from me, who is the most, not apathetic, but the most guy who says, writing to MP is not going to change much. Is like, you have to try at least. And maybe my views changed because of the people, because people in my life are optimists, which is weird, given how pessimistic I generally am. but like you have to at least try, especially when you're the guys who kept pushing Labour. You're the ones who kept saying, oh, we've got a plan. You're the ones who kept calling people Tory enablers. And now suddenly I don't want to bash Labour too much because it helps the other guys out when, you know, good policy stops them. Improving people's actual living standards. Forget GDP growth. Improving people's living standards is what stops them. Businesses, you know, you've got businesses that are going to put up prices now because of the change to income tax. The change to national insurance. That's going to drive inflation. And we know inflation is one of the key reasons why people like Biden and people like Sunak lost the election. The cost of living crisis, which we're going to see again kind of this year, I imagine. If Labour actually did good policies, dealt with the energy companies, dealt with the price gougers, would be in a good position, and that's what we should be pushing for. But you can see here the apathy is crazy. All they're going to do is they're going to do a ton of videos on like reform and how reform is a big problem, which it is. And I will do videos on them as well. But I will keep caveing it out with Labour need to do something in order to stop the rise of reform, because if reform do come out and do well, it's because Labour failed. That's it. That's the end of it, really. The media will have a part to play by constantly platforming Farage. 100% I agree with that. But overall, it will be a failure of policy from the Labour Party. And that's what we need to push for now, actual good policies. And we need to try, because we've got only a few years until the election. But, you know, this lot here, it's just sad. It's sad, isn't it? I'm not saying I feel bad for them, but it's sad, like, the people who push the Labour Party the most have just fallen out so badly, because now they see what people saw before the election, which is a party with no policies, just vibes. The fact that they came in having no idea what they were doing. There's a Telegraph article about it somewhere. There it is, talking about how, you know, there's grave concern about the economy flatlining. Labour advisors now privately defend the decision to deny winter fuel allowance, but, you know, they look like bullies by bullying older people. You've got here someone talking about how, you know, Starmer discovered within days of entering number 10 that there was no plan, even though he was meant to be the guy with the plan. But we told you before the election, you know, when we looked at the fiscal rules, which is literally what I said on Bowler Hatman's stream when we did the joint stream together, that they have no idea what they're doing and the fiscal rules will be a huge problem for them. They kept arguing smokescreen. Oh, everything I predicted will come to pass. Did you predict a bad Q1 2025? Did you predict a bad Q4 2024? Did you predict a flatline in Q3 2024? It's just embarrassing for me. So, I mean, I think we need to push. I probably will contact my local Labour MP when I get a chance and when I can be asked to do it, but I think you should as well. If you live within a constituency, especially one that recently changed hands to Labour, I would ask them consistently, how are you going to improve my life? Why should I vote for you in a few years' time when you haven't, you know, so far all you've done is take money from older people and push nonsense economics? You know, we said from the jump, me, No Justice, other people said from the jump, the fiscal rules are a complete joke. Actual economists came out and said the fiscal rules are a complete joke. But all they want to do is push this idea of competence. Well, all you're going to do is completely hand this country to the right wing, to the populace. And then what are you going to do? Who are you going to blame at that point? But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. You know, Starmer wanted to be a two-term Prime Minister. He's looking like a one-and-done kind of guy. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You know, we've got to at least try to make something positive happen. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.